The numbers didn't make sense at first. Lena stared at the screen, the glow of her laptop painting her face cold blue in the darkness. Her savings account, gone. Every dollar she had saved over 6 years, gone. She scrolled again, her breath trembling, her mind refusing to believe what her eyes showed. A transfer to her parents' joint account. The memo read, "Emergency Fund." Her pulse pounded like a war drum in her ears. She called her mother. "Mom, where's my money?" Evelyn's tone was calm, almost rehearsed. "Sweetheart, we needed it. Your father's job." Lena cut her off. "You stole from me." The silence that followed was heavier than any apology. "We're family," Evelyn whispered. "You'll understand one day." Lena stared at her reflection in the dark screen, her jaw tightening. Maybe she would understand one day. But not tonight. Not ever. What would you do if the people you trusted most robbed you and called it love? Lena didn't sleep that night. The word family replayed in her head like an accusation. Every message, every lecture about saving responsibly felt poisoned now. She remembered her mother's laughter when she got her first job, the pride in her father's eyes when she paid her own rent. All of it built on lies. By morning, she had packed what little she owned and left the spare key on the counter. No note, no goodbye, just silence. The only thing she owed them now. She rented a cheap studio across town, the kind where walls echoed and dreams went to die. Every sound outside, car horns, distant laughter, felt like a reminder of what she'd lost. She told herself she was free now. But freedom, she realized, was colder than she expected. Weeks passed. Her parents sent messages, apologies wrapped in excuses, guilt disguised as love. She didn't reply. Each unread text became a brick in the wall between them, and she built it higher with every sunrise. The day she finally changed her number, her hands didn't even tremble. She deleted their contacts, scrolled through old photos one last time, then let them vanish. Somewhere she hoped they'd feel it. The quiet snap of the last thread holding them together. 2 years later, Lena had built a quiet rhythm out of solitude. A small marketing job, a smaller apartment, and a peace she didn't fully trust. But the world has a cruel way of circling back. One evening, as rain slid down her window again, her phone buzzed with a name she hadn't seen in years. Mom. She stared at the screen, thumb hovering, heart steady. After all this time, what could they possibly want? She didn't answer. Not that night or the next, but curiosity is a slow poison. Eventually, she listened to the voicemail. Evelyn's voice trembled, something Lena wasn't used to. "We're in trouble, honey. Please call us." She replayed it once, twice. No apology, no mention of the money, just need. The same need that had cost Lena her trust. Weeks turned into months and the messages stopped. But one night, a letter came. Her parents had lost their jobs. Their debts had swallowed everything. "We might lose the house," her mother wrote. For a long time, Lena stared at the words, remembering the night they had taken everything she had saved. The same walls that sheltered their lies were now crumbling around them. She told Noah about the letter over coffee. He listened quietly, hands clasped, his firefighter uniform still faintly smelling of smoke. "You could help," he said softly. She shook her head. "They already took everything I had." Noah didn't argue, just nodded, the way people do when they know they can't change someone's pain. That night, Lena stood by her window again, watching the city shimmer under streetlights. For years, she had begged them to see her as more than their safety net. And now they were begging her. Maybe karma was cruel. Maybe it was fair. Either way, she wasn't answering. The night the fire started, Lena couldn't sleep. A restless unease gripped her chest, the kind that comes before a storm. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something in the silence that followed made her glance. Another call. Then, another. She turned it face down. Moments later, a message flashed across the screen from Noah. Big fire on Elm Street. Your parents' address. For a long time, Lena just stared at the message. The world outside was quiet, too quiet for what she felt inside. Across town, the night burned orange. Flames devoured the Carter house, roaring through wooden beams that once held family photos and laughter. Neighbors watched helplessly as firefighters shouted commands through the chaos. Evelyn screamed for her daughter, not from pain but from the hope that guilt might still bring her running. But the phone never rang back. Noah found them in the wreckage, alive but broken. The fire had taken nearly everything. When he called Lena again, she didn't answer. He left a voicemail instead, his voice low and tired. They made it out. Barely. Thought you should know. His tone wasn't judgment, just exhaustion. Maybe he understood. Maybe he didn't. But Lena couldn't listen again. Not yet. Lena sat frozen. The message still unread. The phone buzzing again. 100 memories clawed at her. Birthdays, Christmas mornings, every "we're proud of you" that now sounded false. Her mind screamed to move, to do something, but her body refused. Maybe this was how the universe balanced debts, not with lightning but with silence. Hours later, dawn crept in. Smoke still rose from what used to be her parents' home. Lena finally unlocked her phone and listened to the last voicemail. Evelyn's voice, shaky and raw. "Please, Lena, we need you." The house. Then static. Then silence. Lena pressed delete. Her thumb didn't tremble this time. 3 days after the fire, Lena drove back to the place she once called home. The air smelled of wet ash and smoke. The scent of endings. Charred beams jutted out of the rubble like broken ribs. The yard where she'd learned to ride a bike was now a grave of blackened wood. Her parents stood nearby, wrapped in donated blankets, faces hollow. Evelyn looked up first. For a second, her lips parted. Maybe to apologize, maybe to justify. But Lena said nothing. The silence between them was the loudest thing in the world. Evelyn spoke first, her voice a fragile whisper. "We lost everything, Lena." The words came wrapped in tears, but they carried the same familiar tone, as if loss was currency, and Lena still owed her something. "You took everything from me first," Lena said quietly. Robert tried to speak, but the sound caught in his throat. The wind carried the smell of burned memories between them. None of them cried. None of them cried. Evelyn reached out, hand shaking, but Lena stepped back. "We were going to give it back," her mother said. "We just didn't expect everything to fall apart." The excuse hit harder than the betrayal. It wasn't remorse. It was survival. Lena looked at her mother and saw not a parent, but a stranger who believed love meant taking until nothing was left. Lena turned away, walking toward her car. Robert called out softly, "She's still your mother." The words hung in the smoke like ghosts. Lena paused, fingers gripping the car door handle. "And I'm still her daughter," she said, "but that doesn't mean I owe her forgiveness." Her voice didn't tremble. It cut clean. Before she left, Lena looked once more at the house, at the twisted remains of her childhood. Every lie, every manipulation, every empty apology burned with it. She didn't feel justice or peace, only the quiet understanding that sometimes the fire doesn't destroy, it reveals. She got in her car, turned the key, and drove away as the wind carried the last smoke into the sky. Days passed, but Lena couldn't shake the image of her parents, hollow, trembling, surrounded by ashes. Guilt had a quiet way of creeping in, slipping through cracks she thought she'd sealed. She met Noah again at the cafe, the same corner table, the same 2 cups of untouched coffee. He looked at her differently now, not with judgment but with sorrow. You knew the house was burning, he said softly. Lena didn't flinch. They burned me first, she whispered. Silence fell heavy, the kind that says more than words ever could. You could have saved them, Noah said quietly, almost to himself. You had the chance. Lena's eyes flicked toward him, calm and unreadable. And what would that have changed? They'd still see me as a bank account. Noah exhaled, his jaw tightening. Maybe, but you'd still have been you. That stung, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. Revenge had changed her reflection more than the fire ever could. That night, she dreamed of the fire, not as it was, but as it could have been. Her mother calling her name from inside, her father's voice breaking through smoke, her own hands refusing to move. She woke gasping, soaked in sweat. In the dark, she whispered to no one, "They made me this way." But even then, she wasn't sure if that was a reason or just an excuse. The next morning, Lena stood at her bathroom mirror. Her reflection stared back, tired eyes, cracked lips, and a faint tremor in her jaw. She didn't look like the girl who once begged her parents for approval. She looked like someone who'd learned that justice sometimes feels like grief wearing armor. She whispered to her reflection, "You did what they taught you. Survive." Later, Lena walked by a newsstand. A headline caught her eye. "Family loses home, community rallies to help." There was a picture of her parents, smiling weakly for the camera, wrapped in donated coats. For the first time, she didn't feel anger or pity, only distance, the kind that means you finally stopped bleeding. She turned away, the wind catching her hair, carrying the ashes of everything she used to feel. Weeks passed, and the world moved on. But Lena couldn't. Every night she walked past her phone, wondering if mercy was just another form of weakness. One evening, she stopped pretending not to care. She opened her laptop, searched their names, and found a small fundraising page. Her parents, faces worn, thanking strangers for help. For the first time, she saw fear in their eyes. Not guilt, not pride. Just human fragility. Something inside her shifted. Maybe justice had already done its work. Maybe it was time to end the war she'd been fighting alone. She transferred a small amount, just enough for a few nights in a motel, a little food, a second chance. She sent it anonymously. No message, no signature. As the confirmation email appeared, Lena exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. Mercy wasn't forgiveness. It was control. The kind that I'd stolen from her, and the kind she'd finally reclaimed. Later that night, she stood by the window again, watching the city hum with indifference. The same lights that once felt lonely now seemed almost peaceful. She realized revenge had made her stronger, just quieter. But in that quiet, she could finally breathe. The past no longer burned. It had turned to ash, and ash doesn't hurt anymore. The next morning, she texted Noah for the first time in weeks. "That'll be okay." That was all she wrote. No explanation, no confession. No confession. He replied a few minutes later, "So will you?" For the first time in a long while, she smiled. Not because things were fixed, but because they didn't have to be. That evening, she opened her old photo album. Between the pictures of birthdays and holidays, she found one that stopped her. Her parents, younger, happier, arms around her shoulders. She stared at it for a long time, then closed the book. Some things weren't meant to be healed, only remembered. She placed it back on the shelf and turned off the light. Years passed like quiet pages turning. The city changed, and so did Lena. She'd moved twice, earned a promotion, and built a life that finally felt like her own. Not borrowed, not taken, not owed. One cold morning, as she crossed the street with her coffee, she saw them. Her parents, older now, smaller somehow, sitting at a bus stop. Evelyn's hair had gone gray, Robert's posture bent. They didn't see her. For a moment, she almost waved. Almost. But then she remembered the girl they'd left behind and kept walking. Sometimes peace isn't found in reunion. It's found in restraint. She paused halfway across the street. For one breath, she watched them, how her mother leaned her head on her father's shoulder, how time had turned arrogance into fragility. There was no anger left in her. No victory either, just understanding. Some debts time pays back on its own. She turned and walked on, the wind brushing her hair like a hand saying goodbye. That night, Lena returned home and placed her old photo album on the table again. She didn't open it this time. She just sat with it, the way you sit with a memory that no longer hurts. The apartment was quiet, the kind of silence that didn't ache anymore. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like anyone's daughter. She felt like herself. She brewed tea, opened her window and let the cold air in. The world outside was still moving. Horns, footsteps, laughter, all of it continuing without her pain. She smiled softly. Some people chase revenge, some forgiveness. She had found something rarer. Freedom. The next morning, sunlight spilled across her room. Lena opened her window wider and breathed in the crisp air. Somewhere across the city, her parents waited for another bus, another day. She didn't hate them. She didn't love them either. What she felt was simpler, nothing at all. And for the first time, that felt like peace.